case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering
champagne on ice, and she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. And in the master's chambers, they're gathered for the feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man, we are programmed to receive. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
you boys and girls. London calling, now don't look to us. Phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust. London calling, see we ain't got no swing except for the rain and the truncheon thing. The ice age is coming, the sun's zooming in. Meltdown expected, the wheat is going thin. Engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river, to the imitation zone. Forget it, brother, you can go it alone. London calling to the zombies of death. Quit holding out and draw another breath. London calling, and I don't want to shout, but while we were talking, I saw you nodding out. London calling, see we ain't got no hide, except for that one with the yellowy eyes. The ice age is coming, the sun's zooming in. Engines stop running, the wheat is going thick. A nuclear error, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river. they said, well, some of it was true. London calling at the top of the dial, and after all this, won't you give me a smile? London calling. I never felt so much alike.
Riders on the storm, riders on the storm. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. Like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone. Riders on the storm, there's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday, let your children play. If you give this man a ride, sweet family will die. Killer on the road, yeah. Girl, you gotta love your man. Girl, you gotta love your man. Take him by the hand, make him understand. The world on you depends, our life will never end. Gotta love your man, yeah. Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm. Into this house we're born. Into this world we're thrown. Like a dog without a bone, an actor out on loan. Riders on the storm.
Everything you got, you keep on dancing and the rhythm gets hot. You drive us wild, we'll drive you crazy. You say you wanna go for a spin, the party's just begun, we'll let you in. You drive us wild, we'll drive you crazy. You keep on shouting, you keep on shouting.
Everyone, I hate it when the mic isn't on. Did they hear me say that? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Fadner, chairman. No, I guess my name's not up there. Of MediaPost. Welcome to the Email Insider Summit. This is our 13th annual trip to Deer Valley. Some people say, why do you keep going back there? But then others who have started coming more recently say this is the best place in the world. And it is if you're into winter sports or just a beautiful spot. And so we're glad you're here. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope my advice to you is take advantage of every opportunity to be involved with the networking activities and the other activities, the outside activities, because actually, besides being fun, it's how you meet your fellow attendees, and that's where the real value of this summit is, because the people who are around you in this room are some of the best people in email marketing, or maybe the best. I mean, who am I to judge that? But I think you will find out, and I'd like to have you tell us after the fact what you think about this group we've assembled. There's a number of additional things I'd like to tell you about what to do here while you're here, but actually, I've learned over the years no one really wants to listen to me. So, and a lot of people who've been here before will tell you that, will agree with that. So I'm going to, without further ado, call up somebody who has actually been to maybe every year we've done summits of one kind or another. He was originally a regular, steady attendee at our search summits. Recently, he became CEO of MessageGear's maybe it's not so recently. Huh? 2 years. 2 years ago. And so he's been coming to the email summits. Which are better?
That's like picking your favorite child.
Okay, so he loves both of them. Search, which happens later this week, here as well. And in any event, Roger Barnett, a great friend, I think, of MediaPost, and I hope a friend of all of us at MediaPost. I think he would agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yes, he does. Okay, Roger Barnett, he's going to talk to you this morning about Dream and Do, connecting marketers to customers faster. And we really appreciate your support, Roger.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. Good morning. Oh, wow. Okay. It is a pleasure to be up here and to always love the Insider Summits, the email Insider Summits especially, and to get to talk and have discourse with really some of the best minds in the email industry over a few days. So thanks for having me on stage. And today I'm going to talk about the ability in email to dream something up, to conjure up something that can really move the needle and to actually be able to execute that, which is increasingly harder and harder to do in the email space. We're going to talk a little bit about that, why it's harder and what we can do about it. Customers are more demanding than ever. I think this is just a fact. Customers are expecting personalized experiences today across the board. You know, when the current popular slate of email technologies were developed in the middle of the last decade, batch and blast was really the way to go. And consumer expectations were to receive batch and blast emails. That's just not the case anymore, because when they experience brands outside of the email channel, they experience incredible personalized experiences. Chick-fil-A is another Atlanta company, and outside of being a great client and having the world's best chicken sandwiches and waffle fries, they really do a great job with cross-channel personalization. I'm a very loyal customer, and I have their app, and it's amazing how it engages me with the store I go to most often. They know me by name when I go there. I get personalized emails, which gets me back to engage with the app, which gets me back in the store. And it's really an incredible brand-enhancing experience, what Chick-fil-A has been able to do. Ebates is another customer, and they are in the business of delivering specials to their members. So they use algorithms to figure out which discounts might be best for you based on your behavior and history. But when you're in Macy's, they will actually send you a push notification to remind you that you have a 10% discount in Macy's, right? Which makes you more engaged with their emails when you get them, because you're not being intruded upon with their messaging, but you're being actually helped in a very profound way. So I love this quote by Brandon Witcher, which is, each time a customer is exposed to a digital experience, an improved digital experience, their expectations for all digital experiences after that are reset to a new higher level. I think this is just intuitively true, right? But the problem is with email, we have not kept up with that. This is a Forrester report that says consumers' experiences with email, how they grade email as being personalized for them, has not improved since 2012. There certainly has been a lot of technology improvements since 2012. So why is this? And I'll just talk about some examples first. Walter Rowland, one of my fellow gearheads here, just made a purchase at, let's say, an international retailer. He's a loyalty member there. He bought something online, got his shipping notification, and 2 days later got an email from that same retailer that said, "Where have you been? We've missed you. Come back to our website and buy something." Very disconcerting for him. He's like, "Am I being phished? Should I delete the email? Did I not buy something? Did something go wrong?" It should have been a very engaging experience, but instead it actually hurt the brand image in his head. Another gearhead who works for Will Devlin, who's in the back there, who runs marketing for us, was telling this story. We were talking about bad experiences with email. Unfortunately, there's just too many of them. He bought him and his wife Beyonce and Jay-Z tickets, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and very excited, and spent a lot of money to do so. And the next day, gets an email from the ticket vendor saying tickets are still available. And so he's really worried. Concert sold out at this point, right? So he goes, logs back in feverishly. Yeah, sure enough, he did buy the tickets. But why are they sending an email to the same email address that bought the tickets saying they're still available? Why not send an email that says, here are restaurants close by. Here's things you can do before the concert. Here's places you can park. Maybe make a dime if you want. But increasingly, and it's far too common, that consumers get poor email experiences. And I don't think it's the fault of anybody in this room necessarily. Certainly not the email marketers in this room. It's not a lack of innovative ideas or things you want to do. It's like you are limited by the technology you have at your disposal. From where your customer data lives to where you're able to actually use your technology to send out email campaigns, it's just difficult to create personalized experiences at scale in real time. And the problem is, because of this data disconnect, and if you indulge me ever so briefly to be a little bit wonkish on the data side, email's unique. Unlike your brethren across the floor from you that are doing programmatic advertising, let's say, you rely on your customer database to send effective email. On one hand, you have an advantage, right? Because you know who your customers are, names and addresses, credit card numbers, purchase history, all this really incredible PII data that sits behind your firewall that you have access to, and you can send incredibly personalized, you should be able to send incredibly personalized experiences based on that. The problem is the software that you use to do that in 98% of the cases for the people in the room is SaaS software that lives in the cloud outside of your firewall. So your data, rightly so, is locally. All you guys are enterprise marketers. You have lots of data, and it's complex, and there's PII, and there's GDPR concerns. So you're storing it where it needs to be stored. But you're using an email system that doesn't live on that data. So you're forced to work with a system that gets a copy of your data, usually 24 or 48 hours after the fact, and you're having to pay twice. You're paying to store your data locally and paying to store it in your cloud. It doesn't really make sense on the face of it, and that's certainly our worldview. And if you're a super sender, that's what we call clients that spend, customers, prospects that spend 20, 25 million emails a month or more. We certainly have clients that send 1 billion emails a month or more. But if you're a super sender, this just doesn't work. If you're a mid-market sender, then this isn't as big of a disconnect. So the old way, and it wasn't limiting, again, in the middle of the last decade when these software technologies were developed, the old way is great for batch and blast. But if you want to send personalized emails at scale, from a marketer's perspective, if you want to blast out 20 million emails and send out 500,000 versions of that same email based on who the consumer is and what their history is, and you want to do it in real time, that data disconnect is too limiting, and you end up with the experiences that I described before. So when your data sits, your ESP sits on top of your data for both targeting, audience creation, as well as doing dynamic content based on real-time data, it creates a lot of happiness across the board. The great thing about this is it's a win-win. I mean, certainly the marketers in the room are happy, right? Because you can dream up an idea and actually execute it. You have every piece of data that your company owns at your fingertips for your email campaigns, and it's your live data. Your IT guys love it because they have spent time cultivating this. As a reformed engineer, I can make fun of myself by putting that image up there. But they've spent this time and energy and money creating this 360-degree view of the customer for internal use, and they don't want to spend their time and money copying that up to somebody else's cloud just to send email, and then in a very rigid way, it's ETLs and data transformations, and it's a pain in the rear. Your CFO is going to love you because this is when you don't have to store your data twice. You're already paying to store your data. Why pay money to store it in the cloud as well in a way that doesn't enrich that data? But most importantly, your customers are going to love you because you're sending better emails, more timely emails, more targeted and engaging emails, and delivering great consumer and brand experiences. So when you're on your way to work in the morning and you get a great idea of, I wish I could do X, whether X is, saying, God, somebody bought those, those brown boots are flying off the shelves, and we should send out follow-up emails to people who bought those boots who haven't bought belts. Or you say, I want to send an email to folks who have reserved hotels in ski resort areas and have to follow up with rental car SUVs, or, links to be able to get ski lift tickets or rent equipment, or whether, you want to show really unique dynamic content. But the idea that you come up with something, you say, I can execute this today. I can do a test. I have access to the data. There's nothing limiting the marker and holding me back because I don't have to call IT. I don't have to have a multi-departmental exchange to be able to come up with an idea, execute it, test it, and see how it works. A couple examples of this for our clients. Ebates is a customer, as I mentioned before, and they were really struggling to do dynamic content in their welcome series. The way they had their data set up and the way they were structured internally. They installed our platform and were able to launch a welcome series in a single day that was better than what they had spent the previous 9 months doing. 45% increase in engagement with new subscribers, and able to push what they called phase 2 of their email personalization 2 years in advance of what they thought they were going to have to do to redo their internal data systems to get to where they wanted to go. Expedia wanted to really increase, they were on one of the big marketing clouds, and wanted to increase the sophistication of their email programs, having these same challenges with using a marketing cloud to target in real time across tens of millions of customers. They're able to use our platform to send hyper-personalized messaging, and they saw not only a 100% boost in email ROI, and they're very scientific method testing in terms of how they do A/B testing, but their head of IT told me they spend 50% less energy and cost supporting our platform versus the previous marketing cloud. So our hybrid cloud technology, we have part that lives on premise and part that lives in the cloud. But that technology is, we like to call it email 3.0, and it's just a different, more efficient way of doing things across the board. And Nick Einstein here somewhere. Nick, our friends at the Relevancy Group say great things about us, whose job it is to be impartial across the board. But I love this quote: virtually everyone we've ever spoken with has raved about the people and the technology at MessageGears. And they gave us a lot of top honors as well. So that's hybrid cloud technology, that's MessageGears. And I wanted to use this opportunity. We're thrilled to announce to the first time, this is actually, we haven't released this publicly, or we're going to be rolling this out to clients the next week or two, but we have a new product innovation. We're doing cross-channel orchestration in MessageGears platform for the first time natively, and we're super excited about this. We're launching, first of all, a brand new version of our what we call our orchestration product, our campaign orchestration product. And this great new open journey product, first of all, it's going to be completely native cross-channel. So you can do not only email, but you can send mobile push and SMS in an orchestrated way across our clients. What's great is you don't have to set up separate journeys for each of these. They're not disconnected. You can send them in an orchestrated way across the same individuals. You can do things like send them an email And if they don't open it in 5 days, then follow up with a push message. If they do open it but don't click, send them this other email channel with a different call to action, but all within one journey. You can do personalized channels. So if somebody has raised their hand and has had rather receive push messages than emails, then you can set up templates across all your channels and send them the preferred channel, or say send the channel where they're more likely to engage based on history. We have open journeys, and we love this. When we went out and talked to all of our clients and talked to prospects about what they love about their current journey product and what they don't love about it, one of the things that is most frustrating to them about their current product is the fact that journeys are closed loop systems. So if you don't enter in phase 1, you're never going to get to step 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And this is very limiting for how you set things up. And so you end up with 50 journeys, 75 journeys, and then it becomes unwieldy to manage. We have designed our product to where you can set it up where if you qualify for step 3 of a particular orchestration, then you just join that orchestration in step 3. And then I think something just as important is there's the lack of rigidity in our system. So I'm sure all of you have had frustrations with your current journey system where if you want to add a step or you want to change the template in phase 3, then you have to copy the whole journey and then create a copy of it and then make that change. And now you have 2 journeys doing essentially the same thing, but you have some people funneling through here and some people funneling through there. If you want to add step 7 or 8 in our product, do it. If you want to delete step 5, do it. And you can do all this with live audience counts. As a marketer, you can set up and do drag and drop audiences, figure out how many people will be eligible for this journey in every single step. And also, of course, for every step and every option in every step, you'll have analytics across people that are qualified for that and opens and clicks across all your different channels. So we are super excited about this new product. And we'd love to have everyone here get their hands on it. So, what we like to say, if you're a super sender and you have some frustrations or you have something that you've dreamed up but you're not able to do, let us know. And give us your toughest program. We're happy to give you a free trial of our product, and we'll install the product and let you have at it and show you how you can do something in a day that you most likely couldn't do or would take a lot of time and energy in multiple departments to get done. So dream and do. That's Message Gears. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Roger, thank you so much, as always, for kicking things off. Any questions for Roger for now? We know we have you here for several days. You also have a team here?
Yeah, so I pointed them out before, but Walter and Will, if you guys could stand up. Please seek us out, and we'd love to talk to everyone while we're here. And I hope everyone has a great week.
Great. All right, thanks. Big round of applause for Roger and Message Gears. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a couple of minutes just to refresh the room a little bit, clear the plates and things. And then we'll be right back here to kick things off with some other content. So take about 5, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. Thanks.
busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for a train, and I was feeling near as faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed a diesel down just before it rained and rode us all the way to New Orleans. I pulled my harpoon out of my dirty red bandana. I was playing soft while Bobby sang the blues. Windshield wipers slapping time, I was holding Bobby's hand in mine. We sang every song that Javi knew. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing, I mean nothing, honey, if it ain't free. No, no. Yeah, feeling good was easy, love, when he sang the blues. You know, feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and my Bobby, yeah. From the Kentucky coal mine to the California sun, hey, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Through all kinds of weather, through everything that we've done, your Bobby, baby, kept me from the whole world. One day up near Salinas, I let him slip away. He's looking for that home, and I hope he finds it. But I trade all of my tomorrows for one single yesterday, to be holding Bobby's body next to mine. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing, that's all that Bobby left me. But if feeling good was easy loud when he sang the blues, hey, feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me and my Bobby, yeah. La da da, la da da da, la da da la da da da, la da da la da Bobby, yeah. La da la la la, la da da da, la 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 Bobby, yeah. La da da. Hey, no, Bobby,
bought them for you. Graceless lady, you know who I am. You know now you decided to show me the same. No sweeping exits, oh, off stage lines could make me feel bitter, treat you unkind. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. Wild, wild horses couldn't drag me away. I know I've dreamed you a sin and a lie. I have my freedom, but I don't have much time. Faith has been broken, tears must be cried.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to get the show started now. Not that it didn't start earlier. We enjoyed the presentation from Roger, Message Gears, longtime sponsor of our shows here. And I have a couple of minor announcements and advice, which I think maybe I said already, but you know, it's always good to repeat things that are important. So be sure to be involved with the activities. There's sign-up sheets out front. I didn't say this earlier. Guests are invited to the activities, guests of yours, at a charge. We charge our cost. Actually, we charge below cost, believe it or not, because that's just the kind of people we are. And so you can sign up. You can bring guests out on the slopes or on the various activity. I don't know what's on today, snowmobiling or something. And also the evening, this evening, which is this fantastic fireside dinner. There's a lot of cheese and a lot of meats, you know. But aside from that, it's a lot of fun. People, it's a great setting for camaraderie. However you say that. And there's a lot of drinks. Some people like that. And we go up to the top of the mountain. It's a beautiful setting, and you might want to come along. If you're bringing a guest, you really have to sign up like right now, because we have to have access. Not right now, before the end of the coffee break, because we have to have an accurate count. I think I know you'll enjoy it. Everybody always does. We're also moving on to the substance of today. We're very grateful to our premier sponsor, Epsilon, who has been in this role for a number of years now for us, at least 3, perhaps 4. And they always organize a fun activity for the group. They've had things like ugly Christmas sweaters in the past and other things that even better than I can remember. And they're going to tell you about it and get you involved in it in the next few days. And I want to call Lauren Gentile up for a moment. She's Vice President, Executive Creative Director of Epsilon. We appreciate their support. She's going to come up and tell you about the contest and a bit about Epsilon as well. Lauren?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I wanted to wish everyone a warm welcome. We are so happy to be here at the beautiful Stein Eriksen Lodge. And we first wanted to thank MediaPost. Thank you so much for hosting another wonderful event with great content. We're really looking forward to having some wonderful conversations with everyone in the room and learning more about how you guys are connecting with your customers and how you're approaching personalization. First, I wanted to introduce a few colleagues of mine that are with me today. So if you guys can stand up, we have Grace Kotvis from our marketing department, as well as Christina Farrell from marketing, and Lilia Arsenault from our client relations team. So thanks, you guys. We are, as I said, looking forward to getting to know everyone and having some conversations around email marketing, as well as, of course, skiing and snowmobiling and all the fun activities that we have planned. As Ken said, we have some fun events planned on Tuesday evening. After dinner, we are going to kind of host a little bit of a white elephant gift giving, nothing personal, if you will. So as we think about personalization at Epsilon, we're really powering those conversations through our Agility Harmony platform and thinking about how we can create that one-to-one dialogue with our consumers and being able to really capture and remain relevant inside the inbox. So looking forward to having those meaningful conversations with everyone in the room and learning from you as well. So hopefully we'll have some fun and get to know each other over the next few days. And thank you very much. Thanks, Ken.
So people just bring their white elephants on Tuesday evening?
Nobody needs to bring anything. We have taken.
Oh, you have white elephants. Okay. At dinner. So you bring white elephants. Okay. Are there prizes?
There are not prizes.
Oh, sorry. The prize is the fun of the white elephants. It is fun. Whatever they do is always well organized and a great deal of fun. Okay, without further ado, you'll definitely want to be there. It's a great dinner and great fun. So I'm going to call Steve Smith up now. He's the VP and Editorial Director of Events for MediaPost. I had to look up his title. It's over here somewhere. He's been with us for a lot of years, and we've appreciated all his contributions. He's actually probably knows more about this industry, email and beyond that, digital advertising and marketing, than almost anybody you'll ever run into. Not necessarily the day-to-day, what you're doing day-to-day to make things happen, but the broad sweep of how the industry's working and where it's going. And he's a good guy to know. He's hard to know because he looks unapproachable. And he's a very mysterious figure. But we love him at MediaPost, and I think you'll learn to love him too. Here he is, Steve Smith.
There you go. Your MC is unapproachable. There you go. What a recommendation. Welcome, everybody. Welcome those of you who are coming back. Who of you are first-timers to the Email Insider Summit? Wow! That's great. That is great. I'm sure you're going to have a good time. What the hell are you all doing here? You were supposed to be obsolete years ago. No, really, we've been doing this now for over a dozen years, and for all of those years, we've been hearing about the implosion of email, the erosion, and the quick demise. We've been hearing about it with spam-like frequency. Look at all the things that were supposed to have replaced you by now: instant messaging, social messaging, app alerts, SMS, and of course, millennials do not email. Remember that one? And yet, here's the stat. Instead, according to Statista, 5.6 billion active email accounts will be live by 2019. That's the world that we really are in. Email still at the center of things, still the most reliable, persistent identifier, but also the thing that everybody needs. And that's why we're still here, despite all of the naysayers. Let me load the deck, Mark. I just have a few quick things to cover, and one of the reasons why, of course, this is true is, and this is some of Emma's data, in a survey of marketers, we still find that email beats all other digital channels for ROI in a walk. Just about every other channel fails to have the ROI of email. As well, accountability. Email still is, among all marketing channels, the most accountable, most easy to measure, and second only to search in its utility for analytics. And although email arguably is the oldest and the most mature of digital channels, one of the ironies that we engage in events like this is that it's still, in many ways, still behind the curve for a lot of brands. And we see a range of experience with a lot of different brands. 40% of marketers admit that they still don't do any personalization in their programs. Only 16% even have half of their emails personalized. And more than half of marketers surveyed by Emma said they almost never A/B test. 53% use no automation to trigger messages, and another 24% only use it for the initial welcome email. So one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of legacy and very big brands still don't, I got ahead of myself, still don't use a lot of the basic tools. And that's, I think, one of the values of EIS, is that we bring together a lot of the trusted experts in the field with a lot of brands at varying skill levels. And we have those conversations across those skill levels. Everybody gets to learn from everybody. Even the most experienced of the email marketers here get to learn where everybody else is and get to know how to talk across a broad range of conversations about this field. The theme of this event is engagement. One of the things that's interesting about email is that, of course, in many ways, it's a victim of its own success. Its ROI is so strong, its accountability is so obvious, that it's called upon to do everything. It floods the zone with the easy metrics of conversion. And one of the hardest things that is we've found in recent years among email marketers is to convince people within their own organizations that email can be used in a much deeper and broader way, to have broader and deeper conversations with consumers. And that's one of the things that we're trying to engage in this event, is to talk about engagement, to talk about moving beyond the conversion metrics, and talk about deeper relationships and deeper conversations with consumers. But I also, as I always want to do in these events, is start with you. I did a quick survey of most of the marketers who are coming here to sort of get a quick poll, a temperature check of where they are in terms of the major challenges, the major promises, the things they're working most, just to get their voices here at the beginning, because that's really what this event is about, is bringing forward the best examples, the best voices in the field to talk to one another. Peer-to-peer is what this event really is about. So I asked, for instance, and I'm going to move through all these quickly, and by the way, they'll all be online later today, so if you have any trouble finding, tracking the charts or tracking the quotations from the marketers here, you can go online and grab the deck. I asked everybody, what are your chief organizational challenges? And as we often get in these events, a lot of them are internal. A lot of them are things, not only things like GDPR having an impact on people, the challenge over acquisition channels, which, by the way, we'll be talking about tomorrow in particular, about how to balance acquisition and deliverability, but also alignment across teams, breaking down silos internally, talking across teams and getting everybody on the same page. That's one of the key things that I think we've been hearing a lot of. Hiring, I think, is on everybody's mind, but also the problem of, again, internal communications when you're launching new products, how to communicate and get everybody on the same page for how to do it. Frequency is an issue that I think is going to come up a lot over the next few days, because it's one of the things, frequency and less is more is one of the tactics that people have top of mind right now. This was a particularly interesting quote. The biggest organizational challenge has been a culture and a process change. We know what we want and we can see the end goal, but prescribing the steps to get there is difficult, and throwing the best technology at it doesn't fix it overnight. This idea of trying to fix the culture, of the ways in which email marketers have to work within a culture of different marketing goals and different marketing values, getting people on the same page, in particular getting people on the same page on the issue of CR and the value of CRM is one of the themes that came through a lot in a lot of these responses. Yep. And then I asked about technical challenges. Scaling personalized content, the way to, even though the technology is there to do personalization, having both the data and the creative resources to match that targeting potential is one of the challenges that almost everybody faces. In addition to, in addition to getting automation across the channels. One of the big themes that came through in a lot of my questions is data. Data on the front end and data on the back end. Getting clean, reliable data on the front end that you can rely on, getting enough data about customers. Since all of you represent a lot of different industries with a lot of different touch points with consumers, many of you are trying to fill in a lot of data gaps in order to get to that level of personalization of some of the more intricate and more D2C brands. And that's one of the key things. But also the idea that on the back end of getting all of the different silos to work together, and getting all of the data pieces working together and getting greater integration, both in analytics and using all the same data, not replicating efforts. Adoption of the new ESP, and again, evangelizing CRM. We're going to be talking tomorrow about, in fact, we have a special panel just on the RFP process and the ways in which you go looking for new service providers and what to do. And then I asked, what are some of the most successful tactics that you've been employing over the last year? And one of the key themes was less is more. Less is more in a couple of different senses, not only in cadence, fewer emails, but also asking less of the consumer in each message, getting them to focus more, getting through the clutter by asking less of them and to focus on the real actionable information that you have. Also, another interesting tactic is getting beyond personalization simply based on interests, but getting more towards habits. This particular point of optimizing for time of day, getting to know and understand when people are more receptive to your emails, when they're in a position to take action, and to personalize on that. And again, more about less is more, but also dynamic personalized content and how that's working for people. We're going to hear a number of people presenting on the ways in which they're using dynamic personalization. And then I asked about what are some of the most overhyped things in the market right now, the things that you're finding trouble integrating or that you don't fully believe in. Predictive data is one that is very hot right now, but also the idea that the AI label is being really applied to just about everything that many of you have already been doing for many years, the ways in which that's now become the new buzzword that seems to explain everything, but also explains nothing. Using live social fields, and one of my favorite pet peeves, augmented reality, a technology that I still have yet to see applied in really a compelling way that scales very well. But then I asked about, finally, what are the bright, shiny objects that really are working, that you are following? Personalization, of course, the use of video and animation. We're going to be hearing, I think, a good deal about that over the next few days, the ways in which people are incorporating multimedia into the inbox, making it feel and look more like a web page. But then also, I think, across the board, everybody seems to have much greater faith in machine learning and AI, that this is the field, especially email and personalization, is the place where these technologies really make sense, where they seem to have been applied the easiest and with the most obvious success. So that's just to give you a sense of what your fellow marketers are thinking about, what some of their attitudes are that are coming into this, and also a lot of the discussions that I think will come up in the roundtables. And that brings me to my final point, which is about the basic summit rules. For those of you who haven't been here before, we have a very simple set of precepts here. Everything on stage is on the record and live streamed over MediaPost. We're blogging it, we're reporting on it, and it's all going out over MediaPost. It will be archived back at the agenda, so you'll be able to go back and review all of the sessions here and the presentations. But then when we go to roundtables, everything is off the record. And the roundtables really are the core of this summit. For those of you who haven't been to this before, it's those conversations, those open conversations that you have with one another, where the real value of this summit really comes out. And over the years, we've learned that this is the place where the most action takes place, where the best ideas are generated, where the content on stage really becomes conversations that all of you can share. So welcome to all of you. Enjoy the summit. Make the most of it. The more you put into it, I know the more you'll get out of it. And we want to start with a brand that I particularly went after the last summit. There was so much discussion about how good a job Chick-fil-A is doing with its email that I specifically went after Chick-fil-A and asked them to come and talk about how they did it. And when I talked to Emily Randall, who leads the email program for their loyalty program there, what I discovered is that, as she's going to tell us, the story really goes back to the founder of the company and his attitude towards customers and the ways in which over the last few years they used technology, a set of new vendors, reorganizing internally to make good on the promise of really knowing your customer, and that this was not something that simply came out of the technology and the potential of email and the new wave of personalization, but something that goes core to the brand. So let me welcome up Emily Randall, who leads the email marketing program at Chick-fil-A, has for the last several years. She's going to talk to us about how they build a loyalty program that really cares and touches their customers. Please welcome Emily Randall.
All right. Okay, I want to make sure this is on. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Okay, super excited to be here. Let me just start. I want to thank the MediaPost guys, Steve and Ken and Maya. You guys have been awesome. This is an amazing location. So can y'all just help me give them a round of applause? Thank you. All right, so like Steve said, my name is Emily Randall. I work with Chick-fil-A. I'm from Atlanta, and I've been with Chick-fil-A for about 3.5, a little over years, and I lead all the communications with our known customers, and that a huge part of that is our loyalty program, Chick-fil-A One. And within that is our entire email program. So really excited to share with you guys. And let's just jump in. So I'm going to tell you first just a little bit about me. This is my beau. This is Drew. We have been married for about 6 years, and he's back home in Atlanta. And we met at UGA. It's a little sore. I was like, I don't know that I want to say UGA right now because it's still, we're coming out of a little bit of a heartbreak in football season. Gotham back there, and I decided we were not going to talk about football over the next couple days. So anyway, that's Drew. And then these are our two little minions back at home. On the left is Reese, and he's 2 years and 9 months. And Finley on the right is 9 months. So I'm going to start planning our first joint birthday party. So we'll see how many years they let me do that. The next person I want to talk about is Truett, Kathy. So this is the founder of Chick-fil-A. This is a picture of him in front of the Dwarf House Grill, and he started that in 1946. So this is essentially the first version of Chick-fil-A. And that was in Atlanta as well, in a little town called Hateville. And it was super tiny. The reason it was called the Dwarf House is because it was so small. It had 10 stools, 4 tables. He knew everybody that came in the restaurant. And him and his wife, Jeanette, lived right behind the restaurant. It was like gravel parking lot, so they could hear people driving up and walking into the restaurant, so they'd run over. It was 24 hours. So just very small town feel. And he knew every person that came into the restaurant. And he got to know them, he got to know their stories, and he said, hey, this is actually good for business. They keep coming back, they tell people about the restaurant. So this is the heart of who Chick-fil-A is. And he actually said, we're not even in the chicken business here. He doesn't consider us in the chicken business, we're in the people business. And so we think a lot about hospitality, we think about going the second mile for our customers. Hopefully you've experienced that if you've been to a Chick-fil-A. Today we are much bigger. We have about 2,300 locations across the country. And So it gets a little bit harder to know all of our customers by name. But what we have rallied around is it kind of stems from what Truett said, and we all say, when you know someone's story, you can care for them personally. And so the team really thinks about, hey, what are all of our marketing touch points? And how are we caring for people personally through each of those touch points? We'll think about each of those touch points as, is this a deposit on the customer relationship, or is this a withdrawal? And so the story I'm going to kind of share with you guys today is our journey of taking a look at our email program. And about a year and a half ago, we said, hey, this is actually a little bit more of a withdrawal. We're doing this batch and blast approach with our email program. It was pretty messy. And so we said, hey, we actually need to fix this in order to start adding value to that relationship with our customers. And so this story is really one of becoming modern marketers as well. So I don't know that we would have considered ourselves modern marketers even a few years ago. So we're really learning what that looks like. It's a journey. We are definitely still on it. When Steve asked me to talk, I'm like, I think more than half the people in this room are way further along than we are, but I'll share what we've learned so far and what our journey has looked like. So about a year and a half ago, we took a look at the program, and there were 3 key challenges that we were up against. And so I'll walk you through what those challenges were, and then the solutions that we identified for each one of those. And then I'll talk a little bit about what the program looks like today. So the first challenge that we were up against was our databases were all separate, and it was really difficult, impossible, to audit any kind of messaging frequency, capitalize on any kind of personalization opportunities. So we had this email insiders group, which is a pretty large group. It was about 6 million people. And that was your typical sign up for our newsletter, national email program. Then we had A-List, which that was basically a local loyalty program, very inconsistent. Each operator could decide if they wanted to do it, what it would look like, so very inconsistent. And then, it also had emails associated with it. They could send out emails on their own. We were sending a few from the brand. Cal Calendar was another program that had email associated with it. So that was something that a customer could purchase, a calendar that somebody could purchase at the beginning of the year. It would have free items that we would give to them each month throughout the year. And so we would send emails to remind them or let them know what the treat was that month. And then we also have recently launched Chick-fil-A One. So Chick-fil-A One is our national loyalty program. And so there was overlap with all those different groups that I've already covered. And so we said, hey, let's roll this up under Chick-fil-A One. We believe that this is the key to actually knowing our customers. And so we had transaction data. We knew that this was going to grow over time. And so we said, hey, let's hang our hat there. Let's focus there and start to fold some of these up under that. So the solution there was the consolidation of our email databases. That was a hard decision because, like I said, especially email insiders, there were 6 million people there, and we knew we were not going to convert all of those people to Chick-fil-A One. So that was one of those decisions of, hey, is it going to be worth it to potentially let those people go? And so we said, yes, it is. We believe it's worth it. So A-List and Cal Calendar, we folded up under Chick-fil-A One. So we automatically grandfathered them in. And then for email insiders, what the visual is at the bottom is just basically this 5-touch conversion series or sunset series for that program. So, hey, this is Chick-fil-A One, here are the benefits, here's a free treat, your treat is expiring, things like that. So we did the 5 touches and then we decided to officially sunset that program. The second challenge that we were up against was our visual design was super inconsistent. One, we had a bunch of different email programs that we were running. 2, it was under 3 different teams. So that was, it was a pretty clear solution that we needed to just do this visual design overhaul. And so we worked with our partner Brightwave on this, and we did an entire overhaul. We also internally folded everything up under one team, so there were not multiple different teams working on email anymore. I say 3 teams, and it's funny because like our IT team would be like, hey, we need an email, I'm gonna create it. So there were probably multiple more teams working on email. But anyway, so it folds up, so it's all within Chick-fil-A One. You'll see in the nav, it's, or in the header, it talks about Chick-fil-A One, so you can quick link to your profile, you can see how many treats you have in your account, and manage it that way. And then the rest of the template, most of the time they will look like this, but it's pretty dynamic. We'll serve up dynamic content. And then we really think a lot about using that real estate to extend existing content. So we have the Chicken Wire, which is our online blog, basically, where it has long form content, and then we'll think about, okay, well, how do we chop that up into bite-sized pieces, into email, into social, and in other places as well. We have TV spots actually running right now that is an extension of some of our Chicken Wire content. So we really try to distribute that across all of our channels. But then we'll have other, like highlighting our national campaigns, certain products, things like that. And then the third challenge that we were up against was our email service provider was cloud-based. And we had challenges balancing PII with personalization and segmentation capabilities. So we needed something that was going to be on-premise. And so we decided to partner with MessageGears, and that has been, that was a huge partnership with our IT folks. And so we went through a whole set of, capabilities and requirements that we needed, that we were looking for, and decided to partner with MessageGears. So that has allowed us to actually start to take, be able to use the opportunities to actually personalize some of our emails. So today, it's about 1.5 years later, a little more. Put your big boy pants on and get out there, right? So it's like, okay, how do we actually do this, and what does this look like? It's, again, like I said, it's not perfect, but here's some of how we approach it. One, we have about 3 times the email database that we had about 1.5 years ago. So we have definitely seen growth. A big part of that is because of Chick-fil-A One, our membership program. And then we think a lot about balancing scale and personalization. So how do you take, like Chick-fil-A is, one of our differentiators is local ownership. And so we want to be able to take stories that are happening personally and then highlight those in email at scale. And then we also want to be able to take stories that are at scale, like our national campaigns, and then personalize those. So that's a tough balance that we're still trying to figure out. And then we also are balancing local email. So this is pretty interesting. We do let our operators email directly. They email their customers. These are people who transact with their restaurants. So they don't have access to everybody in that, in our membership program, but anybody who transacts with their restaurant, they can email. So we, on the brand side, give them templates, and we give them the tools to be able to send out those emails. We share best practices, and then each template, like you can see, is just one single message. So they don't, it's not the content blocks, that treatment that we have on the brand side, but it'll be one message, and then you can see elements like they can load in their picture, so you can actually see their face in there, they can put their signature in there, they can tweak the copy. So sometimes it's about a limited time offer, like our peppermint chocolate chip milkshake, or it could be information about, hey, we're closing for renovation. And then they can also send really personal emails to even just one person if they want to. And, we know you just had a baby. Here's a treat on us. So they can decide how they want to do that. And then we also balance that from an air cover standpoint from the brand with 2 emails a month. And this is kind of the treatment that I showed you before. And so we'll send, we have all kinds of different messages flowing into this one. And what's nice is that we can see the people that they have emailed, and then I think where our biggest opportunity is on the brand side is thinking about the entire audience that doesn't fall into one of their basically local CRM systems. So what does win-back look like? What does re-engagement look like? That's where we can uniquely help on the brand side that the operators don't have access to. And then here's an example of what a wireframe looks like for an email. We're pulling in multiple different data sources. So we have our customer profile data, we have transaction data, and then location. We have a lot of other sources as well. So it'll kind of tweak, we'll tweak the message or the creative based on where somebody is in their journey, things like that. So this purple content block, for example, had 5 different options that we could plug in based on if somebody had never mobile ordered, if they've scanned and not mobile ordered, if they mobile order all the time. So it just, you know, we would tweak that depending on where they were within taking a mobile order action. And then from a result standpoint, well, first we start out with at least 32 base segments per email. We also have at least 500 different versions, sometimes much more than that. And then from a result standpoint, we have seen about 5 times increase in overall membership since we started this. So email is certainly not the only driver of that, but we have seen email being the biggest driver of keeping somebody engaged or re-engaging them. And then we've also seen about over 20% increase from a conversion standpoint for people who receive the email versus the control group. So then I don't have this up here, but from an attribution standpoint, we are able to measure that. It's incredible what you can tie email, like action in email, to when it comes to sales. And I come from a background of more social media than anything, and we can't tell those types of stories in social. So it's really incredible that we are able to start to share these stories of success and actually measure attribution in this channel. And then really what's next for us is kind of going back to the basics. I think somebody talked about it earlier, but just seeing people as people, right? It's not, and you can't think of them as an email address. It's way easier said than done, but we want to continue thinking about, okay, well, what's important to our customers, continuing to research to understand what is it really that they want from us, not jumping on technology just to jump on new technology. It's really easy to get caught up in the new bright, shiny thing, right? And for us, it feels like we're still learning, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for us out there, but I think kind of going back to the basics of just who are these people and how do we organize our program in the right way has been a huge step in the right direction for us. And then with that, I think that's all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I always have loads of questions myself, but let's kick off with your questions. What questions do you have of Emily in this program? Yep. And by the way, as you when we're bringing the mic, please stand. Tell us who you are and who you're with, so we get to know you.
No, it's an easy one. It's an easy one, I promise. Craig Swerdloff, Traverse Data. So you talked about attribution, and I'm just hoping that you could speak a little bit more about how you handle attribution from in-store sales back to email.
Yeah, so it's a close partnership with our CMI, our Customer Marketing Insights group. They are along for the entire email journey. So when we're starting, like when we write the brief for an email, we have this hypothesis, we're A/B testing. They're along for that entire ride, and then they're the ones who have access to the data. So they partner really closely with Brightwave to actually measure that. So we've taken, like we can measure, it's all because of the app. Like it's, we'll look at mobile orders and we'll look at catering orders, things like that. So we're not able to measure everything. So if somebody doesn't use the app, we have rough attribution and rounded, but not exact. But then from a mobile ordering and catering standpoint, that's what we've been able to measure. So.
Back here.
Hi, Luke Kintai, head of publishing with Intel. I love the TV campaign you guys are currently running with featuring all the local customer spotlights. I was just curious, was that integrated into your email program? And I'm assuming maybe did that help like source some of those stories? And if not, how did you guys find those stories? I'm just curious to know that. Yeah, email, it's a great question. Email did not help us source the stories. Really, that comes from social media was probably more of a driver of the stories, but then paired with stories just directly from operators. So
we just reached out to all of our operators and we said, hey, we know you have these incredible stories of connections between team members and customers, so just help us. And we just set up an email, a separate email, internal email address for them to send those to. But as far as the extension of the campaign, yes, we have shared those stories within email. It's interesting because they haven't actually performed as well as what we thought that they would. So I think we want to dive into that a little bit to understand, well, is there something that we could do to improve those results of that particular content, or is it just not the right content for email? But the other thing too is that whole campaign, if y'all haven't seen it, the whole spirit around it, the whole concept is the little things. And we talk a lot about it's the little things that make a pretty big difference. And we see our customers talking about that all the time. Hey, oh my gosh, they brought me, they brought the high chair over from my kid to sit in, instead of me having to go get it, like tiny little things of going the extra mile. So when we think about how that extends into email, it may not be as literal as showing that exact story in our emails, but what we have started to talk about is what are the little things about email that could say, oh, that was nice. And so like, for example, we're talking about our unsubscribe experience right now. If somebody unsubscribes or hits unsubscribe, they might have to go through a few different clicks. Are you sure you want to unsubscribe? That's not right for our brand. And so what we've talked about is how do we make it as easy as possible for our customers to unsubscribe. If they said they want to unsubscribe, let them unsubscribe. And you know, we might have a separate messaging that hopefully makes them decide to not unsubscribe, but it's just one of those things where it's like, we just want to make it as simple as possible for customers to do what they have said that they want to do. So that's really more about how we're extending it, is the little things about email that just make it an easier experience.
You said 500 plus versions?
Versions.
Tell us a little bit about what those versions entail. What kind of creative are we talking about? What are the big variables there? You're going to those 500 versions.
I mean, the wireframe kind of showed a little bit about that, but I mean, we'll pull in every single portion of the email has a ton of different options that we could serve up depending on who you are. So we'll plug in your name. We might do something about your location. If it's your birthday, we'll have a birthday message. If you were a Cal Calendar member, we've been finishing that up. It's retired, so it's not going to continue into 2019, but we'll share about the Cal Calendar. We'll let you know about how many different treats you have in your account. We'll let you know how close you are to your next reward, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, all of that put together takes us to at least 500 versions for each one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm Heather with AERP, and just wondering, with all of those versions, what is your QC process? Are you looking at every single version? Because it gives me agita thinking about it.
Same, same. Like I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to review every single email as it would appear to a customer. We look at every single content block that could show up based on the query that we've written. And then we'll review, our IT team reviews all the different queries and the segments and things like that. So that goes through multiple layers, and then the creative for each content block goes through multiple layers. But reviewing an email, a full email as it would appear to a customer, does not happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of QC, I wanted to talk more about when we talk, one of the most fascinating parts of this is the coordination and empowerment with the local owners, and that you've essentially got two sets of voices coming to your customers. Yes. So I'm curious about the coordination of that, especially when it comes to cadence. Are you able to calibrate with the local provider so you know how many national versus local emails are hitting a customer?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, no. That relationship with our operators, there's a huge amount of trust. Some of them, though, email a lot, and some don't. So it's really, it can be inconsistent. We give them best practices. We do webinars with them. Each one of them has restaurant marketing director, so it really is the RMD that's actually deploying all of those. So we'll do webinars with them, we'll share best practices, but right now it's not Big Brother. We don't want to set limits for them. We're trying to give them the tools that we believe that would make them successful in this and what would be right for the customer. That said, we are exploring what suppression might look like after a certain customer gets a certain number of emails in a set amount of time. So that would potentially roll out, but right now.
What are you learning about the relative effectiveness of the national versus the local voice? I'm really fascinated by the idea of the power of the local voice.
Yeah.
And what you're learning about what they're better able to do in terms of marketing, what sets of goals they're more effective at, and what you're more effective at.
Yeah. They, from a local standpoint, they know their customers better than we will. So we have access to so much data, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who have these, most of the time, more personal relationships with their customers. So we want to continue that, and that, again, it goes back to Truett of, hey, I want to know and I want to be able to engage directly with my customers. And there's just stories that they can tell that we can't tell at the national level. So even just like we're closing for renovation, or I know that you guys just went through this big life event, and I want to congratulate you and load a reward onto your app, things like that. That we think that that's the secret sauce of Chick-fil-A. We're not a brand that is just always going to come from the national level. We actually want to do that as little as possible. But it is, I mean, it's a tough balance with the operators, but I think where we can uniquely come in, a lot of the conversation that we have with our operators right now is, hey, you do what you do really well. We want to give you the tools to do that, but then there's certain points at which it doesn't make sense for you to be in contact with these customers, and that's when we can uniquely come in. And so I gave the example of like win-back series, things like that we can do on the brand side, because we can see what these people's journeys have been, where data is much more important, where we can uniquely do that the operators can't. So I think it's a give and take for sure with that relationship.
Another one back here.
Scott Cohen, 1-800-CONTACTS. I assume you didn't go from 0 to 500 versions overnight. Can you speak to the incrementality of the program building and any sort of test and learn strategies that you employed along the way to get there?
Yeah, it's a good question. We did do a pretty big jump. It wasn't, I don't know that I would say it was a super gradual. I'm trying to think about how many versions we started with. It was a good number. It was not 500, but we said, hey, let's just start with basic, like we'll start plugging in from a personalization standpoint, name, and then activity that you've done within the app, or how close you are to a reward, things like that. So that was where we started. Then we started pulling in geo and more localized messaging. We have market stratification that has rolled out on our media side, so we started to plug that in, but that was not at the beginning. So I would say, I mean, the first step was tying it to app activity, and then we've just started, gradually rolling it out. But from a test and learn standpoint, we're constantly doing that. I think, I mean, every single email has some sort of A/B test. So depends on what we're trying to learn.
Let me wrap with a more holistic question and bring us back to the premise of the presentation, which is know your customer and the premise of the brand.
Yeah.
After all of this, what do you know about what your customer really wants from a major QSR brand? Do they really want you to be their buddy? Do they really want just the best deal that will save them on a chicken basket over the weekend? What do you know now about your customer that you didn't know at the beginning?
So one, we've seen a huge spike in engagement when it comes to our emails. The piece where I talked about we extend our content, especially from that longer form chicken wire content, adding that in and actually sharing some more relevant content based on what our customers have, what that audience has engaged with in the past, we've seen a huge spike in engagement there. So for us, it's kind of this balance of, I think from a QSR, like anytime that there's a deal or anything like that, that's table stakes. Like that's number one, what they want to hear from us. But when we can add in that additional content that's more relevant for them, we've seen engagement spike even more. So I think it's that balance. We're never gonna probably send just a content email. It's kind of that balance of really basic rewards, table stakes type stuff with more of the long form content.
Emily Randall, thank you very much. What a great opening.
Thank you guys.
I want to invite our first panel up to talk about the theme of the event, which is engagement. And I wanted to start talking about engagement by talking about disengagement. And all of the things that are pressing against email, they're just fundamental metrics. We know that read rates are down. We know that AI and machine learning is often driving emails more into spam filters than ever before. We know that at the top of your iPhone email client, there is now an easy unsubscribe button. There are so many things that are fighting against engagement within that inbox. We wanted to talk to several marketers about how they're fighting this problem of disengagement. Before I do, I want to introduce our moderator, Tara Clark, but in doing so, I want to thank her because Tara came here and keynoted a couple of years ago. I did an interview with her. One of the reasons I had Zillow was because I'm a perennial client of Zillow. I've been shopping for a house for like 10 years. But I wanted Tara to know that it finally comes to fruition. Tara, we are closing on a house next week, that one, in an 1812 stone house in southern Pennsylvania, thanks to Zillow that we found there. Tara Clark runs the lifecycle marketing program at Zillow. I am her prime client. She courses through CRM messaging of all types with customers like me to finally bring them to endpoints like that. Please welcome Tara Clark.
We have a lot of ways to engage with you now that you are a new homeowner as well. So let's talk about some of those. Hi, everybody. I am Tara. I am the Senior Director of the Lifecycle Marketing teams at Zillow Group. Mostly that means that my B2C team supports the Zillow brand. We have many consumer-facing brands, real estate brands, Trulia, StreetEasy, HotPads, but my team specifically supports the Zillow brand. And then my B2B team supports the lifecycle marketing efforts for our flagship real estate agent business, which is the Zillow Premier Agent brand, as well as what we call our emerging market verticals. And so lots of B2B work and B2C work in the house. My team recently renamed. We were the email marketing team until early fall, and then we rebranded to lifecycle marketing, I think in an effort to sort of get at some of what we're all here discussing today, sort of deeper engagement with our users and our customers. So 2018, crazy year for Zillow in particular and my teams. We're coming off a major infrastructure reinvestment meant to sort of break down the walls between email and push marketing in particular. Those two marketing channels had grown up really siloed, so that was a massive undertaking for us. We had Gmail sorting experiences. I hate using the word issue because there's always a silver lining to the Gmail sorting algorithm. But that was 6 months of our year. This year was figuring out tab placement and where things were ending up and why they might be ending up there. This was the first year that we kicked off some SMS pilots that were sort of deeper funnel work, engaging with customers. In particular, in the markets where Zillow offers is piloting, which is a program where we will buy a home from users in particular, and we will sell those homes. So that's a new sort of down funnel market offering from Zillow in certain areas. So that we kicked off some personalization pilots around that. And then our recommendations, algorithms, and our machine learning opportunities really sort of blew the doors off things this year for us, where we really figured out the right way to recommend homes to people. So that was exciting as well. The way that we have thought about engagement in particular is a listed home is actually a commodity. Our competitors and our partners are all trying to get the same home to home shoppers in particular. So we think about how can we do that the quickest, in a way that feels the most personal, in a way that feels the most innovative. So that's something that we're thinking about in 2019. And it all harkens to personalized experiences and deeper engagement. So enough about me. The way I'd like to sort of approach, I think, is we'll start with you, Vanessa, but would love for you to introduce yourself, talk about how you get work done at Logitech, how the teams work together or don't, and then what you're thinking about in terms of engaging the disengagement battle.
Sure. I think to start, I want to talk a little bit about the structure of Logitech. So part of our corporate strategy is to be a multi-brand, multi-category company. And we've done that through acquisitions. So we've really expanded our portfolio through acquisitions. So in the Logitech ecosystem, you can imagine we have a bunch of different business groups. So we have our core where we originated from, which is mice, keyboards. We have our Circle team, our Harmony, and the list goes on. And everybody kind of operates in their own swim lane. And then in addition to that, we have our gaming line, our gaming brands, which are Logitech G and Astro Gaming. Then we have our music, which is Ultimate Ears, that sells portable speakers. And then finally, we have Jaybird, which Jaybird actually based here in Utah. They sell fitness headphones. And then finally, our last acquisition is Blue, which is microphones. So it's an interesting structure. Global brand equity kind of sits across all of these teams. My team, Consumer Engagement Marketing, sits within global brand equity. So a big focus of ours is how can we generate more revenue across all these teams, but also how can we build better relationships with our customers. So to answer your question, one of the big projects that we're working on is, in order for us to be more personalized in our marketing, is really to build the right infrastructure. So you can imagine all our databases are separate. Everybody has their own email teams. Our manual process of opting in and out of emails is completely manual. We have one person that goes in and removes people from lists. So the big infrastructure piece that we have is really, one, consolidating our databases so we have one single look at our customer. Also migrating everybody to a single ESP. And then finally, building a preference center so we can really understand what types of content people want, but then also give exposure to our other brands.
So one thing that stood out to me when we were talking initially was 6 brands. Migrating to a single ESP is a massive internal undertaking. So I'm curious, I think Emily's story too amazed me in that they were able to pull off things like that in a year and a half. Those types of projects can take years just to get buy-in across teams and then internal support. How did you go about that process?
I've worked on really big global brand initiatives. This one has been a little bit easier. I think people want this. I think, a lot of the teams are on, these very unsophisticated ESPs. So it's been something that's been pretty easy. I think at this point, I'm really trying to manage everybody wants in. And what's part of the migration, we really have to phase this out. But also, I think a big part is involving our IT team. I think this is a huge IT initiative, and having the support of IT has been crucial. They're actually funding the project. We have, data architects all in place. So I think structurally setting up with IT and with marketing is really key. I think will be key to our success. Fingers crossed.
So you mentioned people are sort of excited maybe about the opportunity. Did you find it was more, oh, thank goodness someone else is solving this problem for us, versus, wait, I have my own opinion about how this should go, because it could easily go either way?
Yeah, and I think it could, and I think some of the challenges that we have going forward is the decision tree, right? Right now, Circle sends out 5 emails a week. When we consolidate all our data and we look at our list that way, I don't think that's going to be able to happen. So right now, everybody's excited and very eager, because I think it'll allow them to do more from a triggered campaign, more segmentation, but I think there will be hurdles like when we have to set up a decision tree in terms of Circle gets to send an email versus Jaybird.
Right, yeah, I was gonna just ask about if the sort of revenue goals, I guess, and engagement goals are clear across the across the brands, and if there's
Yeah.
duking it out for.
Well, I think that's what we've hired a company, Merkle, who is helping us with the migration. Another big part of setting up the right structure, but part of their assignment is also to set that decision tree and how do we determine and how do we even maintain our data and the hygiene of our data. So I think there's a lot of components to it.
Okay, so 2019 will be the year that migration happens for you, and you'll start to see the fruits of that labor, hopefully?
Yeah. I think we've just kicked off the project a few weeks ago. It's taken us about 8 months to get to this point. We had a very small RFP process looking at various ESPs involving various different business groups and brands. So now we're getting going. We did interview a couple other companies structured like us, and those, it took their migration over 2 years. So I'm hoping it doesn't take that long.
Zillow Group has a similar structure with, Zillow and Trulia is one of the best examples where we're essentially doing the same thing, getting the homes in front of users. And so the sort of spirit of competition, even within Zillow Group family brands, is often strong and motivating also. So.
Yeah, and I think we'll be able to share learnings across the board of what's working well in different channels and stuff. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right, Meg, introduce yourself, please. Tell us a little about your role and how you get work done at TransUnion and what we should know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Meg. I work at TransUnion. We're part of the TransUnion Interactive team, which is a branch within TransUnion that focuses on the B2C aspect, so trying to get consumers to purchase credit monitoring products or identity protection products. The nice thing about it is our whole marketing team, our only focus is acquiring new customers. We're kind of broken off into the different channels, but it works pretty well because we don't have multiple people trying to send emails. It's only our team that's sending the emails out, so we don't have any of that competition.
So lucky.
I know, I'm feeling lucky right now. And then we work with the product team who creates the product itself and keeps innovating on that, as well as the technology team that makes pretty much everything happen. One of the biggest challenges we just face is resources and priorities. So what marketing feels is a priority, maybe the product team doesn't, or the technology team doesn't, and it's just trying to balance, getting initiatives that you want through and picking your top favorites to try and get through the system.
So what are you focused on for 2019 in terms of engaging the disengagement battle?
Yeah, so a big one is transitioning our data over right now. We're having a big challenge of trying to just get data over to the ESP, and that's going to be a really big factor for us to be better able to figure out why did people come to our product in the first place, or how did they get into our email system, and how do we, give them the right message, the right reasons to look either at our products or our third-party offerings that we have.
So what does that process look like for you this coming year? How are you wrangling data, disparate sources? Is it a massive internal investment, or are you working with partners to do this?
Yeah, right now it's totally internal, just trying to get all the data pieces that we have access to and figuring out a way to, safely send them over to an ESP.
So one thing that I thought about after you and I talked was, how does TransUnion think about engaging users, customers? Often I imagine people are coming to you in times of crisis or stress, data breach, identity theft. How do you welcome people into the fold in a way that feels, I guess, that it doesn't always have to be in a time of a stress or a crisis? Or do you view it strictly as, let's be here for people when they need us?
Yeah, I think we kind of are trying to be proactive when we're marketing out, so don't wait until you have a crisis. Get something in place now or start thinking about it now. A lot of people don't think about credit until you actually have to purchase a house or you're going in to request credit and you either don't get it or it's a higher interest rate than you anticipated because you had like a late payment on one credit item and whatnot. So we're really just trying to make our messaging be more about proactive instead of reactive. So think about this now, do something about it now rather than wait until you're like, oh my gosh, I think my identity's been stolen.
On that note, I swear, Tuesday of last week, I was like, oh, I still need to do that credit freeze thing. And then Wednesday of last week, I got phone calls from 2 banks. Did you open this credit card? No, I did not. So proactively is important. One more question on your data project for the coming year. Once everyone is migrated and in one spot, what's next after that? How do you intend to sort of use that one database to rule them all?
Right. I think our biggest thing is just the more targeted messaging. It's something that we've been dying for. We're working towards more, as someone said to me, a shotgun approach versus a sniper approach. We're trying to veer more towards that sniper approach and get people on a one-to-one basis rather than doing the batch send out. So with all this data that we'll have, we'll definitely be able to, talk to people when they need to be, talked to and what we can provide them.
Okay, thanks. Liam is here from the UK. I won't give too much away. I'll let him deliver in his accent. But I don't think he knows what time it is, what day it is. He arrived from London recently. So Liam, tell us who you are and how you get work done at Virgin Holidays.
Perfect, yeah. I don't actually know what time it is, so if anyone can let me know. I think I'm still on UK time. I'm from Virgin Holidays. We are a UK-based tour operator, and we sell package holidays. Our main destinations are the US, the Caribbean, and some of the Middle East as well. I come from a team of 4 people, which is quite small. I guess most of you guys probably have massive teams because you've got so many customers. But being in the UK, we'll be happy to have 4. One of the recent changes that we've done recently is a massive redevelopment of the customer journey strategy, and using the 4 of us and outsourcing to our CRM agency, we've managed to deliver over the last 3 years this really key business-changing strategy. It's helped us understand the customer a lot more and deliver a more unified communications previous to the journey and the restructure and re-strategy. Customers in the book flow would probably receive 35 different communications, all from different areas of the business. And they would look horrible. Like, you've got people sending stuff directly from Outlook. It's not very on brand. And being from a Virgin brand, that kind of brand image is very key to us. So throughout this journey, we've managed to redevelop all of our communications and feed them through Adobe Campaign, our ESP. This allows us to look at the frequency and what content customers are seeing throughout every stage of the customer journey. In the last year, my role has been to develop, on top of that, a personalization strategy. So being able to segment customers based on their intent. So you could have we sell holidays, right? So you could have customers just looking at destinations, looking at specific hotels, looking at pricing. We need to be able to understand what that customer wants at the time of the email sent. So part of that strategy is using our vendors to optimize open rates. The personalization piece actually came from our sale campaign last year, where we used our tech vendors to increase revenue by about 49% and web traffic by about 85% versus the year before. So we set ourselves a really big challenge at the beginning of the year by overperforming, and that built the basis of our personalization strategy. So it's about taking that further and making sure that we can redevelop these ad hoc comms that we sent for our sale campaign into an always-on automated approach, and using vendors like Phrasey to increase our open rates and Movable Link to drive relevant content. It actually gets easier. And one of the main things that we can do now is feed in our live offer API using Movable Link. So at the time of open, customers can see live pricing for a destination that's relevant, and we're almost at a stage where we can do that at a scale of 1-to-1.
That's great. How did you talk a little more, please, about sort of defining the personalization strategy? I think that's everyone is thinking about personalization and what does it mean. How do you go about even starting? How do you scratch the surface on a personalization strategy?
Very difficult. Most of our business is offline, whether it's retail or in the customer center over the phone. So what we found is a lot of customers actually want a two-way conversation, And we have to make sure that our emails are following those rules. Being able to look at website engagement is key. So being able to track what destinations customers are looking at so we can feed them the right thing. I mean, you wouldn't go down the street and ask someone if they buy a holiday. Like, do you want to buy a holiday? Do you want to buy a holiday? Do you want to buy a holiday? Do you want to... It doesn't work like that. So what we need to do is make sure that our communications are triggered on behaviors. So we've actually banded up our customer staging based on those engagement levels. And those that aren't engaging, that's where we send the really cool on-brand Virgin stuff to try and get them re-engaged in the website. Every click on an email is another way that we can track and gain more data on the customer. And really that feeds into itself. So you just pass them down the funnel until they get ready to convert, basically.
So one thing...
Sounds simple, right?
Yeah, so it's super easy, especially with a team of 4.
Yeah.
One thing that I like talking about with people is with regard to a sort of a build versus buy culture and how you know when it's right to do one or the other. A question maybe for all 3 of you, and if you deal with that at your own companies, how much autonomy do you have to make a decision to buy versus build? I know in my work, because we are engineer founded, and there was not a marketing team even at Zillow in the very early days. It was exclusively engineers. There is a very strong build culture. And so I can say, oh, you know, there's this cool opportunity to do this thing. Well, we can build that. And well, yeah, of course, but will you build it? You know, prioritization comes into play, obviously. What can be built isn't always what should be built. And so I'm curious if any of the 3 of you have had to overcome that conversation or know when to spend money versus not.
Definitely. I mean, we have an IT team that sees the tech that we use and say, probably like 3 to 6 months later, oh, we could have built that for you.
Yep.
Okay, but we still wouldn't have it in another year. So I think if we are able to get that new technology on board and save the IT team some time, we're a pretty small business, so our IT team is always stretched trying to do the on-web stuff and trying to optimize customer journeys throughout the website. No one really goes, oh yeah, we'll build better things for email. So if you've got a product that you can buy and integrate with, then I think that's a lot easier for us, particularly being a smaller business. But I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, the way we've structured our project is we're leveraging Merkle to configure Adobe Campaign for the first 12 weeks. And then they're essentially training up our IT team and building kind of that infrastructure internally so that we can fully migrate the rest of the company. You know, who knows if we'll have to extend that, but we're kind of bridging where we're using IT to help build, but also using experts and building, you know, capabilities, you know, using capabilities externally as well.
Liam, one more for you. We talked a little about journey mapping on one of our phone calls ahead of meeting here. I think that's a thing I'm hearing a lot about, and that's another one that I think feels a little bit sort of, we understand it intellectually, but as far as getting started, it can feel difficult. How did you go about that process at Virgin Holidays?
Luckily, we worked with our CRM agency, and it was quite straightforward. They did all the strategy and everything like that. For 4 of us in our team to build that kind of mapping would have been impossible. We'd still be doing it today. But the only challenge that we really had for our customer journey was the look to book window. Because we're considered a considered purchase, similar to, I don't know, other higher priced items, our look to book window can be anything between 30 and 90 days. So to be able to map that engagement throughout that journey and make sure that we're kind of diverting the customer to a conversion was actually the hardest bit. So that's why when we rolled out our customer journey, we did our pre-departure, so from booking to departure, which was quite straightforward. I say straightforward, it took about 2 years. But we were able to do all the service-led stuff, and now we're just going back to revisit all the upsell capabilities that we can do, and then we did return home, and then we've gone back to the front of the funnel, or top of the funnel. I see it in my head differently.
Okay, we're doing okay on time? I know we want to leave time for questions, too. So when we chatted, we got together, had a couple phone calls, and met last night, talked through some stuff. The themes as we chatted, sort of that rose to the top for me, were infrastructure, segmentation, cohorts, and personalization, the buzzwords sort of what Emily touched on the same things with regard to Chick-fil-A. These are the things we're all thinking about and know that we need to do and move toward. Do any of you have any last pieces of advice, I guess, before questions maybe about how to decide which of those might be the most important, or how to approach any of them, like make it feel really actionable or achievable?
Yeah, I think part of my team's also objectives is really looking at strategic pillars to align all these brands and companies. So we work on things like building a B2B strategy for the organization. And I attend a lot of conferences to get ideas and learn how to kind of change business models. And I think personalization is the big buzzword right now. We're all talking about it. And I think we had to take a step back and really look at how do we do that. And the infrastructure piece was so critical. So I think it's definitely in steps. I think we will be able to be more personalized once we have the foundational elements in place. And so I think it's about looking at your organization and establishing that first and then figuring out how to grow from there. So definitely baby steps.
Meg?
Yeah, definitely echo the baby steps, small chunks. Don't take too big of a bite out of that cookie. Because for us, I think it's really just been focused on segmenting right now of, okay, how can we figure out what our 3 main personas are. So we had some outside help kind of come up with a report for us on who are our top 3 types of people. Okay, now how do we communicate to those people? How do we create that content for them that's actually meaningful and engaging and gets them to do the next step that we want them to do? So that's been what we're focusing on.
Liam?
Pretty much the same thing. Quick wins, looking at the basics, making sure you've got your data structured right, make sure you've got a good single customer view, and then really start experimenting and going further and building on top of that, really.
Yeah, for Zillow, the infrastructure piece for us was so key. I mean, the idea that my team was running email campaigns and many additional email campaigns were sort of engineering owned. And then in addition to that, the mobile team exclusively owned the push notification programs, and everything was going on all at the same time, and no one knew any of what was going on. Our infrastructure investment to build an internal platform that could see and understand everything was extensive. It took a year to build a platform, and we're still in the process of migrating things to that platform. So, so you can think about personalization, but until you know what anyone is getting at any given time, you can't even really start. So, yeah, I think happy to open it up to questions. If anyone has any final thoughts, I'm happy to hand it over. I think where we have gotten to with engagement is not just, it's a click on that email or an open rate on that email, but a deeper engagement with the brand overall. At Zillow, we're really organizing ourselves around the idea that home matters, that it isn't just about getting homes in front of people, that they can find the one that they like, but what are the ways that we can help them close on that home, get into that home, find the home that not just is okay, but is the home that truly the home that they were meant to be in. So thinking about it from that perspective really just helps us focus on, we're one of the super senders, huge volumes of search results in particular and recommendations. But as we look at that volume, are we really getting the right things to start to build those relationships with users? And then continue the relationship sort of after they found that home where they're hopefully thriving. So thanks. Questions?
For Tara on the panel?
How you doing? Greg Van Horn from Launch Potato. What experience do you have using programmatic media to reactivate segments that have dropped in engagement? Or have you thought about using programmatic media to do that, whether it's in Gmail ads or GSP sponsored promotions, YouTube, et cetera?
Anyone on the panel want to tackle that one?
I mean, we have, I think the thing that Logitech we need to do better about is all of our channels integrating and talking to each other. So we have a programmatic team. I would say that the teams rarely speak. So, that team kind of operates and they are constantly running programmatic placements across all of the brands. But I think we need to evolve a little bit more.
Yeah, our only one is re-engagement program within the email channel. We don't use any of the other channels right now to try and re-engage folks.
We've actually been working on something similar for the past year, looking at connectors within Adobe Campaign for Facebook and AdWords. And what we want to try and do is really enforce the inspirational message rather than the conversion message, because if you get too granular when you're doing programmatic retargeting, it gets a bit freaky. So we want to keep that broad level, kind of here's some destination inspiration that just so happens to resonate with what you've been looking at this week. If we get to the point where you've been looking at a specific hotel and now we're feeding you offers on that, I think there's a little bit that gets a bit weird about that. I wouldn't like it.
The creep factor gets high. For us, it's a little of both. It's a little, we don't do a good enough job sort of integrating all of the opportunities. But then also we have made some progress in the past year with other infrastructure investments, particularly an ad tech platform that is retargeting. And so this coming year will be about connecting email channel to that ad tech platform as well, so that we can start to increase the visibility. As far as re-engagement specifically, we use email exclusively for that, and that's still an incredibly manual process of, oh, this cohort of people seems to have fallen off. Did they buy a home? Can we connect that with some of our other data sources? And we have a massive data set in terms of like how people are buying and selling. So there's a lot of stuff that we have accessible to us that we don't even surface necessarily. So we can sometimes use that to understand who's bought, who's sold, but not enough of a big picture yet.
I wanted to follow up on the programmatic question. And Liam, could you tell us how GDPR has impacted you, both on the data flow coming in from things like programmatic sources, where it's probably the most problematic, but also just internally how you're managing the data you already have and the profiles you already have, and what sort of impact and where you've seen GDPR?
Can I skip the question? It's too soon for GDPR, right? For us, it's been a challenge. One thing that we have found considerably difficult is that we can't retarget on programmatic channels using customers that haven't given us email permission. I think it should be fine, right? They were a customer, we can retarget them. However, we've been through loads of legal discussions about how we can actually leverage this data. One of the main things we actually do quite successfully is look at lookalike audiences on Facebook and feed them back through to our acquisition, which I think is pretty straightforward anyway. I think most people will be doing that. But feeding the data back out is quite tricky. That's something we haven't got figured out yet. Hopefully it won't be another year until we do.
Hang on.
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Marissa Gilbert from American Express. So success is great, but I think we learn a lot more from failure. Could you share a time where you failed and what you've learned from that?
So many failures. I'm going to let the panel go. I'm merely facilitating conversation here while I think about which failure I want to share with you. But does any come top of mind?
I think, my background's in kind of large go-to-market strategy, running really massive brand initiatives, so probably not as pertaining to my role today. But I think maybe just overarching what I've learned is making sure you bring people along with you on the journey, whatever you're working on. So if you're working on a big go-to-market strategy or even this infrastructure piece, I think taking people through where you're at in the process in an organization, particularly if it impacts multiple groups. And I would say my failure is I learned that the hard way across my career. And so now I think even tackling this infrastructure, it's constantly doing check-ins and putting where we're at in the newsletter that we send out. And so I think, bringing people along the journey is probably a big thing I've learned.
I'd say hurdles over testing, like doing A/B testing and doing too many variables within one test and realizing after you do it that you really learned nothing from it because you don't know what actually was successful or what was a failure. So that was definitely something that we learned in the last few years too. Pick just one thing that you're going to test and test that out.
Probably the best thing that I've learned about failure is how to cover up your tracks. Obviously, when you're working with personalization, even like first name personalization, I'm sure most people in this room have seen a terrible example of hello, insert name, or hello, name in brackets. I think what I've learned from that is you have to test pretty much every outcome, not to the granular level of, I'll check everyone's names in there, but make sure you've got the right parameters, make sure you've got the right data, particularly when we're using the likes of campaign. If you don't have the data in the workflow, then it's obviously going to fall over. So it's just a key of making sure that you've got everything that you need in that workflow for the send.
I've got mine. Bloat, email bloat. Last, I would say 2 years in particular. Well, 2018 was when we got our house in order. 2016, 2017, we sort of lost our way in terms of, oh, email's so awesome, let's send more and different types. And because of these sort of walls, that I was talking about between push and even existing email campaigns, we had no idea how people were being impacted by that. And so the way that I've described it is sort of we got kind of fat and lazy on the email gravy train because it is effective and delivers large amounts of visitors back to websites and apps. And so we learned our lesson the hard way in terms of efficiency metrics, I think, and finding our way back to that. So I was happy to see us get the house back in order, 2018.
Megan, you mentioned that you'd winnowed down to 3 personas. Could you tell us a little bit more about what those personae are, why just 3, and why those?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more of the, don't bite off more than you can chew. We really haven't gone into the persona world before, so we really just wanted to focus on the 3 main factors, and in that we learned what age is, where they're at in life, are they married, divorced, retiring, why are they looking at our product? Is it because they're being reactive and they found that their identity's been stolen or compromised, or is it because they're trying to buy a house? Are they being proactive before they buy the house to make sure their credit's in order, or again, is it reactionary? So yeah, I think those were the big reasons why, and what we learned from it was we have a lot more older folks who are on our product that are much more on the protection side, so they're being more proactive of making sure, they took all these years to build their credit and now they're trying to protect it. So we're trying to create messaging that resonates with them on that kind of information.
And it sounds like, Liam, you were doing something similar. You mentioned that you were reading people's responses to email and trying to segment by what they seem to be most interested in, whether it's a particular hotel, whether it's a deal, and that you're segmenting according to their particular priorities. Are you building profiles off of that too? I'm curious about the value of that. It seems like a really interesting way to cut into this customer journey, is to understand different sets of drivers and motives for different journeys.
Definitely. I mean, we call them customer stages. So you could have someone, particularly in the holidays, for instance, where you've got people that are just inspiration stage. They just want to be wowed by the destination. They don't really have a particular hotel that they're interested in. They just want to see beaches and see where it's cool to go. That is kind of top of the funnel, and then we break it down to the next level and look at, okay, so they've been looking at this specific destination 3 or 4 times now, and they've gone into a couple of hotels, but they're still not quite sure. So then we start feeding them hotels in that destination. Once someone is at a point where they've kind of looked at the hotel, or they've got a familiar idea of where they want to go, what kind of hotel, what kind of star rating, what the facilities are, we start feeding them prices. Because no one wants to be fed prices at day one, because it will put you off, considering our prices are quite high. They want to stay in that dream phase as long as possible, and we want to enable that customer to remain in that dream phase as kind of the brand that we are. We want people to be at ease when they're booking a holiday and not be put off by the fact that you've got prices all over the place. So we kind of break it down into different customer stages, and so far it's working quite well. So yeah, we're going to continue to do it.
What sort of course correction have you made along the way? I mean, at some point you're pulling back and looking at this data and you're deciding what these signals must mean. And what is there a feedback loop that's telling you where you're wrong?
Yeah, all the time. We have various engagement kind of metrics that feed into these stages. Originally, when we were looking at it, we saw that the kind of window we were looking at their engagement was far too short. For instance, people start dreaming about holidays maybe 6 months to a year before they look at booking. So it's more about understanding what window, how far we look back, and what kind of engagement points and touch points actually spur those stages on. And we're constantly evolving that because it's relatively new. We've only been doing it for about 6 months. So it is in its infancy. So any feedback loops that we can do are kind of beneficial at the moment.
Tara and panel, we're going to continue this in the roundtable at the end of the morning. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
And we have a little bit of an agenda change, the printed agenda. We've flipped a little bit. We need to make a bit of an adjustment, and we're going to have our sponsored coffee break first. Before we get into that, I wanted to mention again that we are live streaming. So if you have colleagues back at